Rex Publica. Behold the arcane conundrum, a diplomatic chasm, geopolitically calcified, inexorably tethered to the sinews of paleo-cold warriorous residues. At the crux of this insular gnomon lies Cuba, the battered yet resplendent pearl of the Caribbean. And who, perchance, hath descended into this vortex of ideological stagnation to extirpate its multifarious obfuscations? None other than destiny, the digital tribunus plebis, whose cogitative torrents alight upon this topic like Prometheus's flame upon benighted mortals.
Why do we designate Cuba? The State Department is designated Cuba repeatedly providing support for acts of international granting safe harbor. Does it have to do with Syrian or what? 2021 Trump administration. South America, maybe? The Castro regime must end its support for international subversion of U.S. justice. Members of the National Liberation Army, a U.S.-designated foreign terrorist organization, traveled to Havana to conduct peace talks with the Colombian government in 2017. Citing peace negotiating protocols, Cuba has refused Colombia's requests to extradite 10 ELN leaders living in Havana after the group claimed responsibility for January 2019. I mean, if they're showing up for peace talks, why would you extradite them in the middle of that? That's a dumb reason, I think. The sad thing is that under Obama, there were actually flights to Cuba that were happening again. I don't know how long these were going on for, but we started to fly people back and forth. It's so sad that the United States has such a horrible relationship with Cuba. Cuba should be a flourishing island. It's close to the U.S. Imports, exports should be high. Savannah is beautiful. The tourism, I was going to say that the tourism alone would be a massive boon to the economy. The Cuban people would like us a lot more. There's a ton of Cuban people that live in Florida that in the back and forth between the families, or not Savannah. Wait, I'm micing myself. Hold on. Havana. Well, why am I thinking Savannah? I don't even know what I'm thinking of. Regardless. Oh, city in Georgia. Oh, that's where we canvass, isn't it? Havana. There's just like so much. It should be so good. It should be so much better. And it's not. Like, what the? It's so crazy how the U.S. relationship is with Cuba for no reason. I don't think, or at least I'm not aware of anything recently that's even happened. Like, I don't know. Like, this is literally, I don't know any Cold War history, but didn't they call these, is this what they referred to when they talk about a color revolution? Like, the biggest threat ideologically to communist countries is if you can get democratic countries on the border and people are like, oh, look, those democracies are doing well and that makes us want to like cheat here or whatever, right? Like, what, like, wouldn't you want that? Like, how many Cubans would see tourists coming from the United States who have tons of money to spend, like, oh, I'm a janitor and I'm like literally flying here to like hang out in this place where you're a doctor and you're driving my cab, right? It would just be so good. Like, this is like the best propaganda you could do for liberalism, capitalism, for it's just everything. I don't know. Yes, but the Cuban Americans would be big mad, and apparently it's a very important voting bloc. I mean, they're voting conservative no matter what. What is Havana syndrome? More in the rest of America. They are losing ground to Russia and China in South America. Yeah, but like we nuked the TPP and we don't want to do any of that. Oh, we have such a bad vision for America. I don't remember, was it the Monroe Doctrine or was it, we had some doctrine in the US where we basically told Europe off and let South America do its thing. The United States should be so much more actively involved in South American stuff. Not in a Cold War involved way, not in a Pinochet, not in that kind of way, but like in a let's like trade and do tourism and open borders for like visas and not open borders immigrate, like all of it. We should just have such a like better, but we're not even unified at home, so we can't even agree on what our foreign anything should look like. NAFTA for all of North and South America. Yeah, like the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement, like stuff like that should start to incorporate more Central American countries.
The tragedy of Cuba and its lamentable pariah status can only be described as a metaphysical act of geopolitical self-mutilation. It is a chorus of punitive sanctions, ancient animus, and misplaced realpolitik machinations, a relic of the Cold War, a fossilized diplomatosaurus. Destiny, in his inquisitorial unraveling, postulates a truth so heretical it threatens to puncture the bloated dirigible of American foreign policy dogma. Cuba, by all rational metrics, should be flourishing. That is to say, possesses the geospatial proximity, the paradisiacal aesthesis, and the latent economic dynamism to exist as a flourishing adjunct to the United States, a crown jewel of trade, tourism, and transnational goodwill. Yet, alas, o tempora o mors, the United States, crippled by its diplomatic inertia, engages not in the synagogue of mutual prosperity, but in the egregious self-flagellation of sanctions, a Sisyphean punishment for a regime whose sins are dwarfed by the evolving exigencies of pragmatism. Cuba remains a sandbox of anachronos imperial vexation, forever enshrouded in the tattered cloak of Monroe Doctrine hangovers. If one were to strip away the ideological gauntlets of yesteryear, could the Caribbean not metamorphose into a res mirabilis of shared growth? Forsooth, the answer lies in the chasm between political sclerosis and economic common sense. Destiny's intellectual rhapsody penetrates to the pulchra essence of the Cuban enigma. Quid pro quo tourism and trade represent the finest stratagems for ideological sublimation. Imagine the spectacle. Legions of well-heeled Americans disembarking upon Havana's storied boulevards, availing themselves of what capitalism, their voluminous wallets singing the siren song of liberalism incarnate. Could not the Homo cubensis therein gaze upon the emissaries of consumerist dynamism and say, Eureka, therein lies the path to prosperity? Propaganda per pecunia is Destiny's central thesis, a velvet-gloved refutation of sanctions that serves as a Socratic cudgel against the fossilized casuistry of the United States diplomatic regime. It is not as though the United States, by some immutable divine edict, must remain ensnared in this tantrum historicus. What Destiny identifies is the laughable ironia. While nations elsewhere in the Americas flourish under economic interdependence, Cuba, situated naught but a stone's throw from Florida's Auric coastline, languishes under the hammer of embargo. This posture, nay, this actus purgatorius, is not pragmatism, but performative obstinance. America, the hegemon par excellence, perpetuates a dichotomous relationship that serves neither its own interests nor those of its southern neighbor. At the heart of this grand absurdity lies a failure of vision, imperium sine sapientia. Destiny astutely invokes the monolithic failures of American hemispheric strategy. For centuries, the Monroe Doctrine has served as a blunt instrument of coercion, a policy festooned with the ideological detritus of panopticonus intervention. Yet, what Destiny proposes is a reclamation of hemispheric destiny. NAFTA Ultra Magnus, a hemispheric Concordia discourse, wherein trade and tourism serve as the lifeblood of prosperity. The thought is not imperial, nor is it utopian. It is pragmatic, a realization that Cuba's stagnation is a symptom of America's dysfunction. Further, the patholodos of Cuban-American relations reveals the tragicomic spectacle of ideological inertia, a refusal to adapt to epochal inevitabilities. The Cold War is not merely dead, but interred. Its cadaver exudes naught but the stench of diplomatic stagnation. Yet the United States remains shackled to its phantasmic daemon, shadowboxing ghosts of Castro and Che as though these specters still roam the world stage. Meanwhile, Cuban exiles who straddle the geocultural chasm exist as a testament to what could be, a vision of synergy between Havana and Miami, of diasporic reunification unmarred by geopolitical infantilism. Destiny touches also upon the symbolic incongruities of Cuba's economic reality, a nation where doctors drive taxis, where engineers toil as concierges, and where proletari cast wistful gazes toward the Arcadia of American opportunity. To this end, Destiny highlights the ideological perversity of Cuba's plight. Its stagnation, self-inflicted and externally exacerbated, is a cautionary tale not of socialism's triumph, but of the power of sanctions to calcify status quo despair. Yet for America to wield such blunt instruments without regard for their efficacy is to commit a sin of strategic myopia, arma inutilis, force devoid of foresight. Alas, the United States cannot rise to the occasion, for its domestic discord renders it impotent abroad. Destiny's lamentation crystallizes in this recognition. A fractured polity cannot be expected to project a coherent vision. What we witness, then, is a cacophonia democratica, wherein bipartisan rancor prevents the formation of a unified hemispheric strategy. The tragedy is dual-edged. America denies itself the economic spoils of engagement, while consigning Cuba to interminable purgatory. And yet the solution remains tantalizingly simple, a rejection of anachronistic antagonisms, an embrace of concordia lucrorum. Cuba could flourish, should flourish, if only the United States might shed its obstinate self-sabotage. Destiny's vision, though exasperatedly conveyed, serves as a clarion call for engagement. Trade, tourism, cultural exchange. These are the tools of the 21st century, not sanctions born of the 20th. In conclusion, Destiny's discursive tempest on Cuba is less a critique of Havana than it is a damning indictment of America's diplomatic incompetence. The United States, ensconced in ideologica vestigia, possesses every capacity to transform Cuba into a beacon of mutual prosperity. Yet it chooses not to, trapped by the vestigial ghosts of its Cold War psyche. If ever there was a case for the pragmatic superiority of logos over obstinance, Cuba is it, a forlorn casus belli for sanity amidst the madness of diplomatic inertia. And so we are left, as Destiny suggests, gazing across the Caribbean at what could be, while America stews in its own hybris historicus,